Fantastic. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Asea Global Expansion Team Zoom. We've got a great Zoom scheduled for you tonight. Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, who's part of the Asea Medical Board, has joined us tonight. And I know that we get questions all the time that people want to know, how do I sponsor my naturopath, and all these kinds of questions, and why would a naturopath be interested in Asea? So we're going to learn all about that tonight. So Carolyn, thank you so much for joining us.
You are most welcome, Cindy. Super. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So just tell us, for the people that don't know you very well or don't know your story, who introduced you to Asea, and how, and were you just open to it, or had you heard of these molecules before, or how did that work from the very beginning?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I'm going to be one of those who was not at all interested the first time someone actually showed it to me, and that was back in 2011. I was busily involved with an NRF2 approach to health that did not include Asea, and as you know, I really wasn't receptive, so I didn't really pay any attention. I can't say that I spent any time learning about it and turned it down based on education. I did not. I just didn't bother to pay attention. But it came around again for me in 2017. Someone different, Dorothy Dabney, is my sponsor. And she connected with me at a different event entirely. And I kind of laughed because I probably still might not be here if I hadn't misunderstood what she said. I actually thought she was talking about a software system to do with natural health and not Asea. So we ended up meeting for coffee, and she started to talk about Asea. And at that point, I realized I was back to listening to this thing that I'd already turned down once. And I was kind of saying to myself, gosh, I wouldn't have come if I'd known this is what we were going to discuss. But she gave me some of the gel, which of course wasn't there in 2011. And I was kind of pretty slow because I stuck it in my bag, forgot about it for 3 or 4 weeks. And it was just a chance thing that my husband ended up injuring him, an old injury. And I somewhere along the line said, oh, I have this stuff that Dorothy gave me, you know, and it was supposed to help for things that hurt. Let me try. And I dragged it out and tried it on him. And sure enough, the 3 times in 5 minutes did amazing things. And that piqued my curiosity. It was from there, it was kind of a little step by step by step. But once I saw what it was doing, and I got the gel in, and I was actually just really using the gel on my clients and just using them as my test ground. You know, if you got something that hurts, I'm trying out this product. Can you give me some feedback? And I just went through everybody that had anything that hurt, and it was exactly what Dr. Silverman always tells us, you know, go try this on 10 people while you build your belief, because you're going to take your time about drinking the product and getting some kind of an outcome from that. And that made common sense to me that it was obviously something useful for anything that hurt. But I still wasn't really convinced about the redox side of it until I started to do a bit more research and watching some pretty unexplainable to me at that time, unexplainably quick responses with some pretty entrenched challenges that people had, either with autoimmune issues or breathing issues. And that really piqued my interest to start learning a lot more about it.
So you said you were entrenched in an NRF2 approach to health. Now, was that a network marketing company? Was it a pill? What was it?
Yeah, it was another network marketing company that was out there and is still out there with an NRF2 approach using a tablet. We had connected with that with my partner in my functional medicine practice, and it was right at the beginning of that particular company. So a bit like the days when you first got introduced, I would imagine, to Asea, you know, the connection to the leaders and the people that have actually created this thing and bringing it to market were firsthand. And they were providing us with a lot of information on how to use this science for our clients. And we were excited. I mean, I was super excited. My background is enzymes. And once I understood that this was turning on your antioxidant enzymes in every single cell to churn out millions of antioxidants, I was like, oh, I found heaven, right? Key code into how do we address inflammation in every single cell instead of trying to swallow capsules. So we started using it with our clients, but it was really interesting. We never saw the outcomes that we were kind of anticipating with it at all in practice. I was tied to the science because there was a lot of double-blind placebo-controlled studies out there, right? And so they're pretty convincing. And I think here's what was the big aha for me. Looking at the science and believing in the science, regardless of whether we really saw the outcomes of what we were hoping for with clients, just kept me tied to the product. And I had my husband on it for exercise-induced breathing issues. And he's had those for about 20 years. So he was on that product for 7 years before I found Asea. I believed in that science. Absolutely made common sense, right? You're activating something. So we had him on there. Did it change anything for him? No. And 2 weeks into using Asea, and his whole life turned around in that respect. And so that was what got me saying, okay, what the heck is it that I have here? What is it about this that has made such a dramatic change in 2 weeks that this and all these other things that we'd ever used had never made that kind of shift? So, I'm really into it because it was just like, well, this has done something I can't explain, and why is it so dramatic? So that really kind of caught me.
So we know that from the genetic study that NRF2, it's very exciting to turn on that pathway, and that, that inflammation is definitely something we want to get rid of. So why, when you looked into the science of Asea, did you start to go, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than just NRF2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used it with my husband. It made this big shift. So that got my attention. And as I started reading the books, I was scratching my head. To be honest, there was part of me kind of saying, I don't really want to go into yet another product. I've got tons of other products. I was kind of doing this thing in my head, like, do I find a reason to use it? Is there a reason I can say I don't need to? So there was this push-pull going on. And as I was reading the science, I began to look at, I wonder if this is the missing link piece, right? We do all the nutritional stuff, and I'm 20 years in that arena, and I'm sure everybody can relate to taking tons of different supplements, right? You might do one for your adrenals, and one for your liver, and one for your stomach, and whatever, you name it, there's something for each thing. But even in clinic, we'd find that we'd still not necessarily get where we want to get to with people. So we were always kind of brainstorming, what is it that we can get down to the root of things. And as I looked at this, and I thought, well, it's not nutrition, and it's about how those cells communicate within themselves and then between themselves. And obviously it kind of made common sense in some way to me that if we have good communication, it's no different than between person to person, family, relationships, all of that. If you have good communication, you have good outcome. And so I started to think, well, I wonder, and I'd had a patient referred to me who had an autoimmune issue, very common up and down the East Coast because of the animals that we have around here. 3 incidents, 30 years of struggling with this. She'd been to lots and lots of different people, hadn't started to work with her, but I thought, well, I wonder if this could be the thing, because she's never done this before. She's never done cellular signaling and that conversation. I wonder if this link that kind of pull it all together and just elevate. And so I called her up. I didn't have any other experience other than my husband. And I just said, I don't even my brain around what this is, but I do know that you've not done this before. And I'm wondering if it might be the thing that kind of connects everything together and helps you move to where you want to get to. And I just said, you might want to try this for 3 months before you even come and see me. Who knows? It might move you where you need to get to. She made that decision to do that. And you have to understand how momentous this was for me. I had one experience with my husband, which was pretty dramatic. I never saw this woman. We only spoke over the phone. Right? And in 30 days, she had a 90% shift in her health. So it was like 2 events that said to me, what the heck is this? Why is it doing something that's so very different? So to your point, NRF2 is one pathway. We all know, if we look at that gene study, there it is, pathway number 4 of 15, and just in the inflammatory signaling pathways. If you kind of layer that over and you think 5 genes, they're all opening multiple doors. So we may just layer out that inflammatory one, but they all do the same thing. It's like a domino effect. Everything moves on to something else. So we had one tablet that was just activating this. And now we have a product that's doing that and everything else. So I think, plus it's not a tablet, so we don't have to go through digestion. We get diffusion. It's instantaneous. We're getting a whole load of different outcomes as a result of it without barreling through putting something in our stomach and hoping that the body can actually break it down and use it.
So it sounds like you're very open to the network marketing business model. I mean, so if you have a product that's delivered through a network marketing business model, some people are getting really excited about the product, but they're not very excited about the business model. Why are you so open to the business model?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I guess it's probably because I've done another company successfully in the past that was also a nutritional product. Again, I didn't come to that because I wanted the business. I came to it for the same reason. It seemed like good sense. It was something I could offer my clients as another thing. But again, it kind of distinguished, the outcomes were somewhat different from everything else that I'd seen. So that caught my interest. And then I love to educate people, right? And really, that's all we all do, right? We're all educators, enjoying the opportunity to invite people to learn something that we know about. So I just was very enthusiastic about that, and built quite a big company from that, which I probably might still have been in if it wasn't for the fact I had a car accident that took me out of life for about 2 years, and I wasn't kind of focused about going back into it. I think here's what I would say about practitioners, is that when we work in our clinics, we work one-on-one. And if you're in the natural health field specifically, you're probably going to be spending at least a half an hour, most likely an hour to an hour and a half with your clients, and maybe more. So there is a limit to the number of people that you can see in that week. And obviously there is a limit to the number of people that you can look after throughout a year, because they don't all just come once and not come back again. So there's a limit to the amount of work and the income that you can create from that. And of course, people have to be able to see you physically. It's changed a little bit since we've gone into COVID, because virtual has become much more interesting to people, so we can help. But there's a dynamic to what we do here that's so entirely different. I was suddenly able to open up who I could help and have a bigger market with a bigger income from doing what I would do anyway, because now it could go beyond the borders of my office. And I think is an important piece, right? If somebody buys a product from me in my clinic, I will tell you, they're all 100% markup, right? They can't go and share that with anybody else and benefit financially themselves. Here, I have a product that can help someone, but it also enables them to go share it with other people and offset the cost of their own product, which they're not going to get that if they're just coming to a practitioner and buying from something that they're selling. So there's this beautiful dynamic that you can help people not simply physically, but financially, and have this huge ripple effect around the world that's much, much bigger than what we do in our own practices.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that the one thing that can absolutely bankrupt people is their medical expenses. So if people don't stay on top of their health, I mean, that can be the thing that absolutely is the start of their demise, right?
Interesting example of that, because you're so correct. How many people do we hear sometimes will say, well, it's expensive, right? $130 a month is expensive. Let me kind of expense out what that looked like for my husband. So here we have inhalers, visits to the ER, which would always be 3 or 4 times a year. So you have the ambulance visits, the ER visits, and often he would be admitted as well, maybe once a year, for breathing issues that he couldn't hold under control. And you've got the constant payment for inhalers that you're using. We worked out that since he's been on this product, he hasn't had an ER visit. And we calculated out that that was costing us around $13,000 a year for those ER visits. They're not doing anything to improve his health. They're just trying to stabilize an emergency and then send him back to doing what he was doing before. So when people say that it's expensive, I think you have to look at what's the cost of ill health, which is an awful lot more expensive. I don't think people actually even price out how does it affect your family? How does it affect your existence? What work do you lose because you can't go to work? Maybe you lose income from that. It's not just simply the cost of that one little product. It's the impact that it has across the board for our health. So yeah, I mean, we know that bankruptcies are mostly tied to financial costs of medical care.
Absolutely. So have you been able to recruit a lot of other naturopaths and other healthcare practitioners into your network? Or
yeah, sorry, I do have a fair number. I will say I don't target them. I may be kind of a little bit, only because I think they fall into a couple of categories. I think they're either open to network marketing, like I was, or they kind of are closed-minded because they don't understand the model. And they don't understand the way in which it can create a residual income that doesn't require them to be constantly stocking product and selling it on their shelf. There's a lot of investment. We would have about 16 different companies' products in our office. And so we would have, $10,000 to $15,000 worth of products sitting on those shelves at any one time. This is entirely different. And I do like to try to educate them that this is a model that can produce sustainable residual, but also reproductive residual income, which you can't get from doing what you're doing. And I think probably the biggest aha has probably come over COVID. I mean, how many of us in the natural health field were considered non-essential, so had to shut our businesses down? I didn't miss a beat because I had this background income that was sufficient enough to make sure that it really didn't matter whether I was seeing people in my practice or not. But I know that a lot of practices, they've still got all their bills because they've got physical premises, they've got staff to handle, and they've got a lot of outgoings, and they're vulnerable because of it. So I think it's really important to try to encourage them to see that there's a different dynamic from the financial side, apart from what we can do for people health-wise.
So what about the time freedom? Has your lifestyle changed since you've been building an Asea business, or do you still put in as many hours into the office that you did before?
I actually transitioned out of the office after COVID. I made a decision that it was not a space I wanted to be back in. And to be honest, I love the freedom of doing what we have. As much as I love helping people, I would far rather do it this way because I can do it on my own time schedule to suit myself. I can fit in whatever else I want to do. Whereas when you have a traditional business, you have to have committed hours so that people know you're there. Now, like it or not, you're going to be in there from 9 till 5. And that it's interesting, even working for myself, that feels restrictive. I actually like to be able to say, you know what, I can take tomorrow off and I can go and do things with my family, or I can travel, or, you just got the freedom to be in charge of your time. And if it's an emergency that comes up, you've still got you've got that flexibility that I don't think you have when you work for other people.
Absolutely. Do you miss your employees? I don't know if you had employees before, but did you have
in my functional medicine practice with my partner, we had employees. That was kind of different. We weren't a huge practice. We were a cash-based practice, so we didn't have a lot of employees. And those were really more friends. They were part of our family, kind of that family environment. So, but I know that, traditional businesses I've been in before, and in the employee piece, and I would imagine now is even worse because so many people have lost jobs but haven't come back. Businesses are struggling with finding people to help them run their businesses. So I don't have any of those issues, which is great.
Absolutely. So how do you, when you're encouraging somebody to get on this product, do you encourage them to give it a minimum of 90 days and before they, really, so that they give it a chance to start feeling something and not expect an overnight response?
Absolutely. And I would just kind of couch this as it's not really even about Asea. I mean, obviously we're all talking about Asea here, but it's not about Asea. It takes 4 months to actually turn over the blood system once. And that's part of why anything needs at least 90 days to be able to get into the system. When we're working with any kind of natural supplement, you're supporting the body to do what it knows how to do, right? We're not diagnosing, treating, and curing. We're not forcing it against its own will, which is what a drug does. We're coming in as a support system and providing it the tools so that it can restore the normal function of health. And that takes time. I mean, it's not a turnaround job. We didn't get where we got to quickly. directly with our sickness, and we can't expect to unravel that. There is no such thing as a magic pill, although I will say that probably Asea comes pretty close to it many times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we have to give it time. And that's why the gel is such a good tool to get people's attention, like it got yours in the very beginning, to start to open your eyes and so you start to dig into the science and understand the mechanism of action that's making this work. I mean, and so are there any things that you say to people when you have them experience the gel, noting to them that these are the same molecules you'd be drinking? It's just that, you're putting them on your largest organ, which is your skin. So this is not like an analgesic or a pain reducer or whatever. These are the same molecules that you're drinking. And the effect is that you're stiff, you're less stiff, you have more range of motion, you don't hurt as much, right? How do you explain what's going on when people apply the molecules to the skin?
I actually will often give people visuals like a spider's web, because the visual is, the spider sits on one side and a fly lands on the other side. I say the spider doesn't have to walk all the way around the web to know that the spider's arrived. Communication travels across that web, and our cells are identical. We don't wait for things to go from one end of the body to the other. So if we put the gel up here, why is it that something can change in our knee, right? How often have you done things where you'll put this here because you can't get to someone's other extremity, and bingo, it can change instantaneously? It's because every cell communicates instantaneously. So this is this messaging. In the same way that we're doing it all the time. I mean, that's what's happening all the time. Every cell is communicating all the time. And we're just really targeting an area. I mean, it's great to be able to target an area that's out of balance. If we've got discomfort, it's because that signal and the response to meet the demands of that damage is not being met. Otherwise, we wouldn't have those challenges going on. We're feeling that signaling. And it's kind of cool how we can just put it there and bingo, we open up communication, things get back into balance, those signals die off. We don't feel that anymore because the body's doing what it's supposed to do, right? So I just like that kind of visual for people.
So you intimated that I know how important it is to put the gel on the neck, but is that the primary place that you would put it if you can't reach somebody's knee, or if somebody can't reach their own knee or their elbow or their back? If you put the gel on the neck, is there a chance that their back discomfort or their knee discomfort or their elbow discomfort will go down?
Absolutely. I mean, we're hitting carotid arteries around here. So for people who are not technical, right, that's going to get into the bloodstream system. There's something called the vagus nerve, the wanderer, which is our parasympathetic side. In other words, the side that calms down with that hyper side of activity, and then the opposite side for repair, but also back of the neck, because there's a huge amount of communication that goes up and down there. Base of the skull is another great place. But if you're stuck, you can do it on the ears, you can do it on the soles of the feet. It's still going to communicate. But this is a very powerful place for helping us address something that we can't physically get to for some reason. I mean, that's a cool way to be able to kind of help people. It can kind of feel a little bit weird, I think, though, for some people, when you help a knee and you put it on the neck. Right.
Well, and it doesn't hurt that, nobody likes a turkey neck. So it's, what the heck? Why not
Exactly.
target that area of the body? Fantastic. So now you've been building a business for a while. Is your business mostly you're in Virginia, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Is mostly your business in Virginia? Is it throughout the United States? Has it spread to other countries? I know Asea is open in 33 countries. What does your business look like?
If I go through my reports, I think we're in about 30 of the 33 countries. And not because I've started. I mean, I started in Virginia with people that were physically around me, and the only person that I really reached out to outside of this country was actually a naturopath in Singapore when we were about to launch the Singapore market. And I was just looking and said to him, and here's maybe how you can approach people. I mean, he kind of turned me down because it was network marketing when I first said, you know, I'm looking to build that market. It's going to open, and it was probably about 3 or 4 or 5 months beforehand. And I said, I'm just looking for someone who's a self-starter, who loves people, who likes to help, you know, who enjoys kind of building things, is a go-getter and likes to help manage and create something. And I said, you know, who do you know? We got into conversations about the product. He runs cancer clinics over there, and so I knew it was a fit for him, but he couldn't see it for anything because it was network marketing, and he really didn't have much experience with network marketing other than the kind of, you know, it's not a good thing. He didn't really know why he thought that, but that's one of the things. So I left him alone. And I went back to him a few weeks before it was going to open. And I said, and I did the takeaway, I actually said, look, I know this is not for you. I said, but nevertheless, the company is about to open in a few weeks' time. I said, this is a patented product, as if nobody else has this. I said, you know, this is going to be first to market, and I'm still looking for someone who is a self-starter, you know, likes people, is, you know, good at getting things moving, and wants to create something and help me build a distribution network out there. Who do you know? Well, this time I got from him, well, send me the information. So, you know, I sent him the information, and he signed up. It's really been interesting because we often think about it's the people that we contact, but it's not always the people we contact, it's who they know. And he's been a perfect example. I think he enrolled about 16 people in that first year. He has not done a thing since then, but he found people who were runners. And from that, he earns money every single week without batting an eyelid that supports what he does. You know, he's not really interested in building a network marketing business, but the other people are. So I have this whole group that's kind of gone out across Asia as a result of that one contact.
Fantastic. So how does it make you feel as a naturopath and functional medicine practitioner in Virginia, helping people in 30 countries around the world?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, that was the power of knowing what we can get with network marketing. But I'll tell you what was really, really significant to me about this one as opposed to other companies I've done. It's the fact that I actually had this phenomenal product that nobody else had. And I didn't have to say, my product's better than yours because, right, because no one else has it. And the fact that the company will deal with everything. They'll ship everything to 33 countries. I can have markets that I haven't been able to do with anything else, all from my home, and I don't have to invest anything. I don't have to be involved in handling it. You know, if there's a challenge, the company deals with it. I mean, it's a dream from that perspective.
Yeah, fantastic. And how does your husband feel? I know Paul is very involved in your business as well. How does he feel? I mean, obviously the product has impacted his life in a positive way. How does he feel about you guys building this Asea business together?
Oh, he's very positive. He's buried in tax season at the moment, but let me tell you, every possibility to talk about Asea with his clients takes place. I mean, I walked into the office today and he said, oh, here's so-and-so, they're going to be on the Tuesday call with you. You know, and they're already, he flashes the Asea and he said, funny thing, he said, you know, we just put this on and, you know, suddenly this discomfort's gone away. You know, no, he's very dedicated to this. This is something that we actually want to travel the world and just do this. That's our goal.
Yeah. So his exit strategy is Asea as soon as he gets things in place where he can leave his accounting practice. And
yeah, we need another good tax person at the moment. Then we can do that.
There we go. There we go. So are there any words of advice that you'd give associates out there that would love to have a naturopathic physician in their business? Is there any words of advice that you can give somebody that says, man, I would love to have a Carolyn Hoffman in my business? I mean, what I tell people is that people like Carolyn Hoffman are very unique because, you know, people like you just don't come along very, very often, because you have to have a combination of, you know, being passionate about helping people, having the knowledge and the background to really appreciate the science, and also being open to the business model of network marketing, right? Mm-hmm. So do you have any advice for people who would love to have someone like you in their business?
Yeah, and I think the biggest piece that most of them, you know, most natural health practitioners miss is the understanding of the business model piece, that they're very tied to wanting to be in front of their patients. So that can be a big challenge. But I think if you can maybe have, I mean, there's ways to ask questions, kind of the leading, what do you know about redox? Have you ever heard of redox? And don't be the mouth to teach. Just encourage if they haven't heard anything, saying that you've actually learned recently, maybe, or whatever, or you've been using a technology based on this and it's really been helping you. Didn't know if this might be something that you'd like to know more about. Ask permission to see if you could send something. But I still think that if you can get in front of them, if they're willing to do it and let you actually demonstrate with the gel, that is probably the faster way. Or else finding out if there's something that they've got that they'd like to try it on so that they could feel it for themselves, or maybe a family member. It always seems to be that when we have family members and we watch something change on them, look at my husband, right? I wasn't going to use it for me. I used it on him. So if you can do that, find some way to have a conversation about that. That's probably the opener. But I don't know that I've ever seen it helpful to kind of come armed with all the science and kind of presented as though you're going to teach them something. You need to get into a dialogue to find out if they're even open in the first place.
There you go. And so obviously an experience trumps everything. But if you were to send them something, if they said, well, send me some information like your doctor did in Singapore, do you send them the gene study, or is there something that you lean on to show them what's possible with this?
Again, it's questions, what kind of thing would you like to see? I think it's kind of asking them, because some people might be, are you interested in the experiences that people have, or are you very much wanting to see the science? Because practitioners like me, well, I don't know whether I'm, different, but I like to actually see what happens for other people as much as I would do science. I would look at that far more than I'm less likely to make my decision simply based on science. Look at it the other way, right? I made my decision based on umpteen published studies for the NRF2, but it didn't translate to actually doing a lot, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to really deliver what we're looking for.
Yeah. So giving them to this site, the realredoxresults.com, where there's testimonials and a brief overview is something you can lean on, as well as if they're a social media person, adding them to the Asea Healthy Self site, right?
Absolutely. And maybe Amazing Molecules, because that does give them some other links to the science in there as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, listen, we've come to the bottom of the half hour. Carolyn, thank you so much for sharing your life with us, your knowledge with us, and giving us some insight into your business and why what we have is such a gift.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody. And good night, Carolyn.
Good night.
Bye-bye.